Okay. Okay. I think I've got it under. Let me just pull back up the video for this. No. Have I ever mentioned to all of you that I kind of have a thing about bugs? And I know before any of you smartasses say anything, I know that technically spiders aren't bugs in the traditional sense, but they're damn well close enough, and giant bugs are even worse. Okay. Okay. Welcome back to Unrepentant Geeking, the show where a geek can be terrified of bugs. I'm your host, Shaun, and as always, I'm really, really scared of everything, but especially bugs. I hate bugs. I hate giant bugs. Otherwise, how was your week? Okay, I think I have myself under control enough to talk about this week's episode of Doctor Who, Arachnids in the UK, directed by Sally Apperfame and written by Chris Chibnall. The monster, the goddamn monster. Okay, so, yeah, seriously though, this is going to be a bit shorter than a normal review because, A, I already did a review earlier this week of Castlevania Season 2, and that review itself was longer than a normal review, and B, there's really not that much to say about this episode beyond the screaming, which is not to say Arachnids in the UK is a bad episode, far from it. It's just, in some ways, and certainly for this season, this is one of the most prototypical episodes of Doctor Who we've had in quite a while. It's in some ways very familiar, and in some ways very not, and that's been pretty much this season so far to a T. And like I said, it's not a bad episode. I might say it's arguably the weakest episode of the season to date. But that's not saying it's bad, that's just saying it's a bit standard. There are good moments in it, there are some very good moments in it, but most of those said moments stand apart from the actual plot of the episode, which is basically giant spiders are invading Sheffield, the Doctor and friends have to do things about it. Also, for interesting reasons, Chris Noth guest stars, and if you don't know, Chris Noth is, of course, the actor who famous for things like Law and Order and Sex and the City. He's one of those guys, you know, when you see him, you probably recognize him. And he's a distinctly American actor, and a distinctly relatively big-name American actor for somebody who's guest starring on this show. But it's very appropriate because he's basically playing a Donald Trump epoxy. Basically, he's Donald Trump with the numbers filed off. And considering how much I hate Donald Trump, especially these days, it would have been very easy for this character to just completely grate, to be fingernails on a chalkboard. But A, since they actually mention Donald Trump and make it clear he is distinct from him, and B, as bad as he is, and he is bad in a good way, because he's the bad guy, he's not exactly the bad guy, he's more of an antagonistic force. He's not a bad guy per se, he's not a good guy either. He's the antagonist of the episode, along with the things with all the legs and the eyes and the... anyways, that, and they make it clear he's separate from Donald Trump. Anyways, the actual plot of this episode is okay. The biggest problem is it falls apart a bit near the end. Like, there's a lot of loose ends left, and I don't know if these are things that are going to be revisited or not. I'm not convinced they will. Like, they introduce a fun little guest character basically in the form of an arachnid scientist, or who's basically sort of the cause of this, inadvertently. And she's an interesting character. She's fun. I like the way she's played by Shobna Gulati. I hope I'm saying that right. She in a different season, especially a season with not such an already packed TARDIS, which we'll get to in a second, she'd make a good potential companion. I hope she shows up again, especially because her character gets absolutely zero closure. And there's no real closure for any of it. I mean, we just kind of... Giant spiders invade. We confront the giant spiders in their nest. The source of the giant spiders dies due to various reasons. The end. Even though the show spent a lot of time in the episode setting up that there are other giant spiders still out in the city. And potentially there's all the ones still in the room. And yeah, the main plot is fine enough for what it is. And I do admire that they came up with a way that goes around the normal alien invasion. Not that there's anything wrong with alien invasions, of course. By no means. But it's kind of nice to have a little bit of a different source for the giant arachnids in this episode. But seriously, is there going to be any fallout? What about others that got out there? What about the potential for others to keep reproducing? We know there's at least one that made it into a flat so far away from the hotel. You got to figure if one got there, others did as well. Also, it's interesting that the Chris Noth character, who is at least indirectly responsible too, and much more of an asshole, gets no kind of comeuppance whatsoever, despite him being, in a classic Doctor Who fashion, a character who you would think would get it. He's absolutely someone who in earlier seasons would have met a nasty end, and instead he kind of just walks off, apparently scot-free. Now, partially that may be just trying to make some commentary on his, his comparisons to Trump, but I also do wonder if we're not setting up Noth to be somebody to show up again and reoccur, maybe even. He's a relatively big name, to cast in a role like this and not give any kind of conclusion to. And there is, God help us all, another presidential election here in the U.S. in 2 years. So, you think that might be just the right time to bring him back. I don't know. Regardless, even by Doctor Who standards, there's definitely more than your average number of plot holes in this episode. And again, I'm not too bothered. Your random Menace of the Week plot doesn't necessarily have to be the most... every little bit holds together on this show. And thankfully, everything else that surrounds it is much stronger and much more interesting. We get to meet Yasmin's family. We get to meet Yaz's family, which is great. Especially because she continues to be the character who's working the least on this show. Now, that's not to say she's not working at all. But I definitely think they're getting quite a bit by on her actress, on Mandip Gill's performance, far more than they are necessarily on the writing. She's supposed to be a cop, and she's supposed to be a workaholic cop at that, and yet, when confronted with a guy with a gun, she doesn't behave at all like a cop would behave in such a scenario. She doesn't say, "I'm a cop, put that gun down, you horrible little bugger," or some equivalent to that. And I understand that cops are a little bit different in the UK than necessarily in the US, but she is relatively a younger cop, more of a rookie, but it's still... I don't know. Right now... Her natural, the way they're writing her doesn't really feel like anything's being gained from the cop angle beyond what they did with her in the first episode. And a lot of her behavior outside of it doesn't feel super consistent with that concept. I don't know. She feels by far the most nebulous of the three TARDIS team. And again, there's still plenty of time, and I do like that we get her family. And again, the family's a little familiar, it's a family who drives her crazy, but there's an honesty to that, there's a believability to that. In some ways, she as a character, and especially thanks to, in a number of ways, reminds me a bit of Martha Jones, even down to her family setup, but I feel like Martha Jones executed much more effectively. As much as I think there are problems still with the character, and she definitely needs some additional development time, she still feels a lot more compelling, a lot more interesting, and a lot more real, for lack of a better word, than Martha did throughout much of her run, which is not a knock on Martha, the character. I'm not talking about the performance or anything like that. I'm talking about the often inconsistent, iffy writing. And I know they tried to salvage that at the end by trying to say, no, that was the point all along, but no, Martha Jones was an awkwardly written character at best, which kind of made sense with her place. Anyways, Yaz is not nearly that bad. I think her family is more interesting because they're not all just tropes. There's a little bit of that, but they also feel more lived in just in what we get here. And I like her mom, and I like the way the mom plays off it. It all rings true. It all rings real enough. And meanwhile, some of the best scenes in the episode absolutely involve Bradley Walsh's Graham O'Brien. Though every time we cut back to him in the apartment and him seeing, imagining, or is he? I guess we'll wait and see. I almost wonder if that is a big setup. But we see seemingly him imagining his dead wife Grace and how she'd respond. there's a heart-aching realness to that, and Sharon D. Clark and Bradley Walsh just both really nail every scene they're together in. There's so much believability and humanity to that, and they really, really dotted the I perfectly, because we introduced Graham as somebody who's a bit of, I don't want to go so far as to say a coward, but definitely somebody who's not exactly anxious to answer the call of adventure. And we needed to justify why he's sticking with the crew. And I thought they might try to justify just by stretching out the idea that the doctor can't bring him back home for quite a while, maybe even the whole season. But obviously they didn't go that way. And instead, I actually really prefer the way they came up with it, which is basically, it's too much. It's too much to be back in that house. It's too much. He needs time to grieve, and he needs time to grieve away from his normal life, as it were. And traveling on the TARDIS gives him an opportunity that few people ever get. He can walk away from his life, but without actually having to walk away from his life. I thought that made a lot of sense. And again, Tosin Cole continues to be great as Ryan. I continue to like what they do with him. Yeah, overall, the stuff with the TARDIS team was great. And whatever else, even if everything else in this episode was garbage, and it wasn't, okay? Even if it was, though, it all would have been worth it for that final scene in the TARDIS where the team fully comes on board. I really like the way that Chibnall accentuates the difference in how the Doctor is, this version of the Doctor, is recruiting her TARDIS team from past incarnations. And the fact that she is being so open about it, that she's learned the lessons from Rose, from Martha Jones, from Clara, from all those who have come before, and she's trying to make it clear to them. I mean, it's also super obvious she wants them to come along, desperately wants them to come along, but she cares more about their needs than her own, which says a lot about this current Doctor. And again, it just, enough can't be said about how amazing Jodie Whittaker is as the 13th Doctor. I sometimes feel like in these reviews, I don't give her enough credit, but just because she makes it look so effortlessly, it almost feels like it doesn't need to be said. I mean, she's amazing. She's quickly rising the ranks of my all-time favorite Doctor list. I mean, it's too soon to put her on the actual list, but I suspect her final place is going to be pretty damn high, if not even maybe at the top. I don't know. What I can say is so far, I love her take on the character. I love the differences. I love the similarities. There's a lot. There's just so much to enjoy, and I'm just super happy the way we continue to get her character, the differences and the similarities. It's a lot of fun. I will say, if I had, one of the weaker elements is a bit of the way she reacts to the giant, nasty things. And look, okay, obviously I don't like spiders and I don't like giant spiders, but even if it had been giant kittens, I'd still be raising an eyebrow at some of the Doctor's responses to them. I mean, look, I'm all for not mistreating animals, but at the same time, these aren't sentient creatures, okay? They're giant, they're not smart, they're not human, and also their behavior is kind of iffy. Like, we get them webbing up the hotel doors in a way that really doesn't make sense in any other way with how we see them in the episode and with their other behavior and what's established about them. Doesn't really make any sense, and that's one of those whole plots I'll let go because we need it. Otherwise, everybody would just leave the hotel and the episode would end a lot sooner than it needs to. But yeah, that inconsistency is throughout. But beyond just that, I mean, these things are a real threat. Yes, it's not their fault, but they're a real threat, and they've killed people. They've killed actual people. They're not intelligent. These aren't aliens who just are as intelligent or more than us and just looked at it. They're just big spiders. And it does seem like the Doctor is kind of prioritizing them over the fact that, no, they've killed people, Doctor. That's not okay. They've killed innocent people who didn't deserve to die for all that some of them made mistakes. No, that part of her behavior, I understand what the episode's going for, and I will give it credit. I almost managed to feel a tiny ounce of sympathy for the way the mother or the queen or whatever you want to call it died, but at the end of the day, I was rolling my eyes a little bit at how hard they were going in on. I mean, look, this Doctor clearly cares a lot more about preserving all life, than some of her past incarnations, which, fair enough. I just felt like this particular, how hard they went in on it, and some of the stuff she was saying was a little much. I mean, Doctor, we know you. You've taken out non-intelligent life before like this, and not even bad to deny. And of course, every incarnation is different. But at the end of the day, I certainly dispose of them in a way that, isn't unnecessarily cruel, sure. But you're still, A, killing them all, and they are still, B, really dangerous. The fact that the big giant one grew too big and was dying itself was the only reason it didn't kill you. I got what they were going for, and I admit my own biases against them probably colored things somewhat, but that just didn't quite work for me. But regardless, that is a relatively small complaint overall. This was a good episode. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It was good. It worked. It had the surrounding scenes it needed. He continued the development of the team. I think going with a more low-key, more simple episode after what we got with Rosa was absolutely the right way to go. I agree, and wrapping out the opening arc, as it were, of sorts of the show, which I would establish as basically the team no longer going along accidentally, but actually being active participants in deciding to continue traveling with the Doctor of their own free will. That's the opening through line, you could argue, of these initial 4 episodes. So downplaying that a bit and getting to dial back a bit and slow down a bit and get a bit more low-paced episode, I think that's not a bad call. And hey, at the end of the day, those giant spiders were legitimately creepy as all fuck. I had to fast forward at a couple points just through certain scenes just because I was like, nope. So kudos on that. You made effectively frightening giant spiders. But can we now hold off on any more giant bugs for a while, please, please? That's going to do it for this episode of Unrepentant Geeking. Thanks for putting up with all the screaming this week, but, we all have our peculiarities. Anyways, I will be back with a review of next week's episode. I'm also debating, I just finished the first tie-in novel for the 13th Doctor, and so I'm debating how I'm going to review it. I'm definitely going to review it. Am I going to give it its own episode? I almost thought about adding a review to this episode, but honestly, this has been a very busy week and everything. So, regardless, we'll have to see how I do it. And that, of course, is presupposing that, the Democrats win the election Tuesday and I'm not forced to go running out into the night to find somewhere to lay down and wait for the sweet embrace of death out of sheer, aching, soul-destroying despair. So let's hope that doesn't happen. Please vote. Seriously, please vote. Please vote. So, anyways, until next time for Unrepentant Geeking, this is Shaun Cronenfeld wishing you all long days and pleasant nights. Please vote.